In Florida, they're going to start using the trash trucks to scan your property to see how many code violations that they could come up with and cite you for digitally. This can be used to scan right through your home, all the way through the walls. But they could, say we stay with that. They scan your house. They realize your pipes are out of date. Your electrician, didn't do the right thing here. So they turn off your power. They turn off your water. They turn off your gas.
The tokenization and digitization of all assets on the planet need to be cataloged in real time. These data centers, although they're trying to throw you this bone that they're for you, doing all this flock data, et cetera, on your computer. China was doing that with 300 data centers. Like, how all dragnet and atrocious the Chinese real-time system is. And they needed 300 data centers to do it. Now, we in America have 3,600. So for me, it's telling me that there's something way, way, way more going on. And then you look at really what's going on a larger scope. You're going to be tracking everything financial. And that includes all the grains, all the forests, all the lumber, all the fish, all the water, which we're going to come to as well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this beautiful blue planet. Another day to celebrate taking breath in our beautiful existence here as we wander through the created matrix for us. How are you bending the hologram in favor of yourself is the question, versus having all the news bend the hologram for you. It's been an exciting week. If you haven't been keeping up, just so many major things have happened. Quietly, one global currency has started this week. I'll say it again. As we've heard through the past, there's going to be one global currency, one world currency. So here we are. It's going to go live October of 2026. That and also the water. Everywhere you look. I was following Christian over at Ice Age Farmer, his feed, and he popped up some stuff about water. I've been following things about data centers and water. It just seems like water is going to be the new oil, and they've declared a global emergency over water usage. So you can look at it in many different fashions. Where's the opportunity in all this craziness? We're going to have to move in through some solutions right quick, as they would say in the South. Food, crop losses are massive this year in terms of wheat, 150-year lows. Fertilizer, more disruptions, war on again, more disruptions, Hormuz closed again, prices up again. Now we got the water restrictions, we got the new global currency that started. It's like all these things just layered on top of each other. So interesting year. And we're only halfway through it, Ransom. What do you think about the rest of 2026? Where we're going to go with that is the question.
It's been pretty exciting. And this week I spent some time looking through the comments on our shows, and a lot of people give us, credit for things happening that we said were going to happen, but it's not really that. It's just that we like to keep up to date with the way things are changing. Trends are trends. So certain realities are going to happen whether you like them or not. And we're going to have to learn to deal with them. And no way, shape, or form, so no one's confused, am I ever saying the world is going to end or anything like that. I'm saying it's changing. It's a civilization cycle, and you have to get used to the new realities that are kind of coming upon us. And I'll talk about some of those as far as like tech and the way lives are going to change forever all across the globe. Any technologically advanced first world nation is about to be on a whole nother layer of surveillance, and it's becoming reality daily, not monthly, not yearly, not by the decade, but it's here. And it's daily changing. People are getting new ideas about how to use old technology in combination with new technology. And you can bet that the governors, the taxers, are going to use this technology just like everyone else. In the way that they're governing, it's going to be really entrenched in the technology. From flock, you think flock cameras are scary? You should really see the whole plan of what's going on for mass human surveillance. And I might add, if you got the network, already going in the infrastructure and no one really said nothing, then you can start using it for kettling and moving people off property and rearranging borders a lot easier and a lot more methodically. In other words, yes, I think it's getting very exciting in the year 2026.
Feeling the heat, The exhaustion, the withering, being out in the heat. The summer returns once again. Time to rehydrate. We got hydration that works as hard as you do. Perform Light, got sodium, potassium, magnesium, superfood recovery blend, vitamin C. And as Victory Nutrition International would say, recharge, replenish, recover faster. If you want to support this channel, support our advertisers. Fatigue-free summer. Stay hydrated. Perform Light. Click on that link in the description box below. Speaking of the excitement and your health concerns. So if you're anywhere in these areas, there's been a lot of reports of strange smells in the smoke. Now that would make sense, especially since it was so dry and a lot of fields are on fire. Like there's an enormous amount of crops that are on fire in addition to the forests and the grasslands that are burning. If everything's sprayed in glyphosate and they're on a rotation where the fertilizer and the weed control and pest management is ongoing and it's been within, say, the last 2 weeks of application, that would make sense why there's a lot of additional chemical feeling and smells within the air, smoke. In East Tennessee, they're always doing controlled burns. And sometimes we'll get a small forest fire, a couple hundred acres, maybe 1,000 at a big one. I've smelled smoke from a forest burning, either controlled or accidental, dozens, plural, of times. First time, it was kind of close to our house, and the smoke, you could actually see it in the air there, that kind of like thick white around the house, our house on fire. So I ran around the house and then I started using, looking all around to see if I could see any smoke coming, but it was miles away and the concentration of smoke had blown in to the point that it really scared me that our house is on fire or the forest directly adjacent to our house was on fire. And you couldn't breathe even at that, miles away concentration. What I'm seeing here, anywhere that it's purple, that is so incredibly hazardous that you would get sick and have smoke inhalation if you go outside. And, a lot of governments are saying, stay indoors, stay indoors. And, at times it's not really what they say it is. But this time I would absolutely say caution is probably the better way to go because of all the chemical that's involved in the farming process and all of the different unknown plastics and things that are burning out here in this, because it is close to habited areas. So it's far more than just forest fires and grass fires. We're talking residential fires inside crops. So there's just a huge amount of things that are outside the norm in these fires. Now, a lot of people are saying also, because of the chemical fires and these things that are related with it, save your air filters. Like they told those people the same thing in East Palestine when those fires you remember when the rail cars overturned in East Palestine, had all those precursors for plastics and contaminated all the fields and everything, and people had to move out. It's a toxic zone, was a Superfund site now.
Right, and they threw
They
away
told
all the
everybody to
proof.
save their air filters because that could prove the damages to reclaim for their homes because they couldn't sell their homes any longer. So they were going to give some certain price for a home, but they're like, wait, we got the air filter that came in so we can show the toxification. You owe us more money. So encourage those. Even if you have a new filter, put it in just for this event so it can be measured, but make sure you save your air filter during this time. Very important to do that.
And you think about every time something like this happens, people don't think about that. They throw all that stuff away, trying to change it because they're trying to get clean air. I mean, what was that big old chemical spill in Ohio?
Yeah, that's the East Palestine one I was referencing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Okay, yeah. So they were getting all of that stuff in there, and they didn't even think about it, that would be evidence for the future of proof of what they were breathing, drinking all over them. It was raining down on them.
For me, just as an assessment as a kid until now growing up, the planet's just gotten far, far, far more polluted. And it's not from myself as a consumer, it's from the corporations making all these brand new products with 60 million new chemicals that they've invented in laboratories and then dispersing it out through advertising to get you to buy two, they're on sale. And then they blame you for being somehow the driver of all this, when in reality, if you flip that mirror, it is corporations. But again, the messaging from the media is stop whatever you're doing, but it's just not, that's not reality. It's not.
No, it's not. However, At the same time, they really wouldn't admit for years the real problems we were facing as a species is genetic pollution, deforestation, chemical, forever chemicals is the new, term for that. And all of these other things just saturating the environment. It's a completely toxic environment. And I thought this was interesting. This article right here, scientists give chilling predictions for life in 2100, from meat grown labs to intense fires raging across the globe. That kind of sounds like right now, though, because we're already growing lab grown meat and people are getting the dreaded alpha gal there or whatever. And all of a sudden they can't eat meat for whatever reason. But this kind of sounds like now, not 2100. And we were talking last week about, not too many articles are talking about stuff past 2030, but this one is, and it's saying it's what we can expect in the next century.
Now check this out. A lot of people have been talking about flock cameras and masks that are being sold so you can't get identified and this sort of thing. Because they were telling everybody, please don't damage the flock cameras because it's private property and you might get a summons and a ticket and you'll have to do community service. It's not federal property, it's not government property. So, be aware of that you don't want to get a ticket and have to do community service for cutting down a flock camera or putting the stickers on it. But the people who are involved in that are always trying to get around the AI facial recognition, because these flock cameras have a subset, and I didn't know this until just yesterday. You can queue a subset of identifiers in there. So somebody wearing a red t-shirt and it'll pull up everything. Somebody, color of your skin, we're looking for a black dude, we're looking for an Indian girl, we're looking for a white guy, whatever, it'll pull up. And everything that is identified in a car as a driver fitting that description will pull up in its own subset, which is interesting because they said it never had that ability, which means they're now tracking people.
As predicted, there's a building movement against AI surveillance, data centers, etc. It is becoming a movement. And you were just talking about the flock cameras. The problem is I don't think people really have thought out the direction and the course of the technology that we're seeing being unveiled. And I kind of want to get into that. So
just before you start, they do want everybody to focus on the flock cameras. Have you noticed that? Like the news articles, if they didn't want people to know they were getting cut down, they sure as hell wouldn't be in the news telling you every 5 seconds people are cutting down flock cameras and putting stickers on them. What's the reason they're letting it out of the bag? And they want you to push back against these things, because I am absolutely sure there's something else being built in the background that you're not aware of, and I'm not aware of. That is replacing them right now. And then eventually they're like, okay, you won. We got rid of the flock camera. By the way, we already have this other thing ready to go.
Not only that, I think that they're purposely generating and creating a fake movement against the technological revolution. Now I think that they're creating this artificial movement against them so that they can create legal protections and also technology, because they want to see the holes in the technology as it unveils, to completely build this separation of classes between the technological technocratic elite and the peasant class, slave class. So here's the AI backlash has tech executives fearing for their lives. And you can see where they're going to be soon lobbying and things like that, Congress, to make special protections for the CEOs and other people that are involved in the tech industry. They may even go so far as to declare tech industry data centers, and I'm surprised they haven't done this yet, as national security infrastructure and therefore protected by the national security interest in that apparatus. Now, here's a kind of anecdotal thing. However, it's a real thing. In Florida, they're going to start using the trash trucks to scan your property to see how many code violations that they could come up with and cite you for digitally. Now, keep in mind that for a long time, we've enjoyed our right to face our accuser here in the United States, and AI cannot be used for testimony against you. However, they can use AI to generate warrants and tickets, citations, and other things like that, building up on your properties. Kind of they're pulling up and they're scanning, oh, your grass is too much, you got junk in your yard, and blah, 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 blah. This is just to get you to, relax and look at it and say, hey, I don't like those people bringing down my property value anyway. So it's a good thing that they're going to come scan, and it'll keep everybody in line, and it'll be more consistent with a nice civilization. However, this can be used to scan right through your home, all the way through the walls, and this is being designed to check for code violations. Now, say they roll up, and we're just going to keep, pretending with the blinders on that it's only going to be used for these simplistic ideas of money generation. But they could, say we stay with that. They scan your house. They realize your pipes are out of date. Your electrician didn't do the right thing here. So they turn off your power, they turn off your water, they turn off your gas. You can just see endless issues coming from just this simple idea. And I brought it up in the past that soon in the future, they would just roll up to your house, scan your home, use a little LiDAR. They'll find every safe, every hidden thing that you have. We're kind of in the next generation of technology. People just haven't figured it out yet. They're going to have them in space. They're going to have them floating overhead every 5 minutes with the 20 group of satellites that is perfectly geosynchronous to have complete coverage of the ground. This is the stated goal of several different companies, and not limited to SpaceX themselves, of putting up satellites to have no area on the earth that is not connected and surveilled. And people are just not understanding this.
You can take it into different levels here, but you're absolutely correct. The tokenization and digitization of all assets on the planet need to be cataloged in real time. These data centers, although they're trying to throw you this bone that they're for you, doing all this flock data, et cetera, on your computer. China was doing that with 300 data centers. Like, how all dragnet and atrocious the Chinese real-time system is? I mean, real-time on everything. If you jaywalked across the street, by the time you got to the other side, they already had your license flashed up on a large billboard, sent you a fine, deducted it out of your bank, and you stayed on that billboard until the next jaywalker came along. They showed you where they worked to try to public shame you so you could maybe get your boss to fire you, all within seconds. And they needed 300 data centers to do it. Now, we in America have 3,600. So for me, it's telling me that there's something way, way, way more going on. And then you look at really what's going on a larger scope. You're going to be tracking everything financial. And that includes all the grains, all the forests, all the lumber, all the fish, all the water, which we're going to come to as well, because water is the new emergency on the planet. All financial instruments. The DTCC went live with their first tokenization offering. And if I may, I'll just show you some of the tokens that were offered here. But the food's going to get really very expensive, and they're going to need to track that also. And with the new system, they're going to be able to track exactly which field it came from. And the nurturing of the crop also, this new system is going to know every single day what was applied to the crops, how they grow, what the leaf stage maturation was. So when you get that on the blockchain, you can assure that that came from that field, whether it's a non-GMO field, which some countries require, or whether it was a GM glyphosate sprayed regular crop that comes with dent corn to use for ethanol. Like, they can trace and track that entire from when the seed went in the ground, what was applied with the fertilizers, how the land was tilled, what kind of GPS they were using, what machines put it in there, all in like one wrapped package of all that information as a smart contract for every single acre of food grown in our entire country, as well as the shipments when those barge moves down, or whether a rail car takes it, or whether it goes on a much larger cargo vessel to take it over elsewhere across the planet. The amount of real-time data usage of that, this is where it's going to. And I'm just describing something as simple as wheat. So when we come down to the full financial system on the planet, what type of things do you think are going to be needed to track and trace that? I'm talking about quadrillions of dollars, $4 quadrillion in the next year is going to run and be put onto this tokenized system. And once it goes there, it's on there permanently. You will not own the lien to your house. The bank that has offered you the loan is now pledging that through the entire bank as one bundle into this financial basket of capital for the United States basket. And the interoperable baskets, Japan has one, the EU has one, Australia has one, India has one. So wherever you go across the planet, you got these giant baskets of hundreds of trillions of dollars of value. Like, think about everything in America. What's the value of everything in America? Well, that is all now going to be wrapped in a smart contract and in this basket. So if Japan's having a financial crisis, they can simply tap into our basket, borrow the money overnight or for 3 days or however long it is. So this financial scare would pass, because a lot of companies will get margin called and they'll have to sell stock, and then the banks will collapse. And then, like we saw with all these, like we've seen here in America, start a financial crisis. Freddie Mae, Fannie Mac, that whole thing back in the day, the whole Enron, like those companies collapsed because they couldn't get the capital to bring in to shore up their stock prices. Well, that's a thing of the past now. All you have to do is press a button. In less than 60 seconds, you need all the funds you need to borrow to stop that from happening. And these collateral pledge obligations are without end on the dates. There's a small amount of interest that they accrue through that and their fees, and that's all it's going to take. And supposedly there's supposed to be never be a financial crisis as long as we live again, ever on the planet. Everything will be smooth. So as we move forward, you can see the amount of data and computational power that's going to take to put everything on our planet in real time. Every asset moving anywhere. So right now they're doing it on an hourly basis. What they want to do is a 5-minute basis, then they're going to move down to a 1-minute basis, and then they're going to get into the seconds range. Now for me, that's exponential, like we see in technology anyway. Something goes from 1 to 10 to 100 to 1,000. Well, this is the same thing. The amount of technology they have currently, they can do that approximately every 1 hour now. But remember, even just to close an account from money from one country to another used to take 2 days. Now it takes 1 minute. Larger computations of how much density a forest has, that's going to be done on an hourly basis. And there's where your drones come in. Like this overhead, this Overwatch grid that's going to be put above our heads is going to do that in real time. But imagine how much they have to run through in computations to be able to make sure that the ledger balances every X amount of time. This is the real reason the data centers are being rolled out and built out. It has nothing, it has a little to do with like your social credit score and what you're surfing online and where you're driving. Okay, but that's really just a very small fraction. I'm just going to quickly go through it and just the use cases for this thing. Collateral pledge is like you're having a bad debt and you're putting all the world's asset and money valued at something into a big basket. That's the collateral pledge. Now we in America, everything in our stock market, our bond market, the ETFs, all real estate, art, antiques, passed down generational wealth, gold, silver, all mines, all forests, all fisheries, waters, waterways, cars, boats, vessels, airplanes, companies themselves, all can be valued at something. And that is all having a smart contract associated with it in the future. That's the collateral pledge. Like we'll have that much value in this basket as our collateral pledge is America's basket of tokenized assets. Now the Treasury repos, when banks were going to fail, the Treasury would offer them money overnight to stop the banks from failing. And this is really interesting because in 2019, just months before COVID started, the Treasury came to the point where they were lending more than $1 trillion a night to stop our US banks from failing, because no other bank would lend money to another bank because they were worried about not getting paid back the next day. And then it went to 1.2 trillion, and it jumped from $1 trillion to 1.2 trillion in like under a week. And they're like, whoa, we're at the collapse phase. And then boom, COVID comes. They got never any money printing and everybody was happy and trusted everybody again. That COVID saved our global financial system from a 2008 times 10 collapse, believe it or not. The equity DVD or the equity DVP trade and the equity token conversion, as in the actual physical value that can be extracted. So let's use your house for as an example. You bought it for 100,000, it's worth 500,000, there's 400,000 of equity in that. That's pulled out in its own basket, measurable, versus the debt obligation you have. That's in a different basket. So they're stripping out everything in terms of the cost that it costs to buy it and the actual value that's over that now. They're stripping those two things apart, literally. Get on, what else here? And there's some other financial terms I wasn't really familiar with here, like the DVD tray, the CCP margin. The cross-chain conversion is right now where we're kind of stuck with a lot of blockchain applications where they can't move across chains because like Chainlink's its own self and Stellar's its own thing. But now they're getting these interoperable layer one protocols where they can jump across chains. And this solves every single problem. So they've already obviously solved this, or else they wouldn't be touting it. So who came and actually converted equities, as in stocks, and some did bonds. So let's look over Citadel. That's one of the largest firms on the planet. Well, along with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, they did a collateral pledge. Now, it was unknown. They don't tell you what collateral they pledged, but obviously they had something. And then the equity token conversion, Velocity Capital, yesterday took billions of stocks and wrapped them in a smart contract and turned them into this new tokenized stock. Now it's in a bucket somewhere, so people can pull from that bucket if there's a financial collapse or crisis coming. The actual real stocks in a wrapped smart contract, but the value of that is outside, and it's a floating form of that value is usable, but you don't have to sell the shares. Like the shares are locked in there. They're just stripping out the equity to be able to use without actually having to sell the share. And you can pull from that as like a central bank or a company from somewhere, a banking system. Myrex and Drive Wealth, they exchange tokens. And this is the biggest thing. They talked about this in their videos. They did a simultaneously payment swap. Now, normally that would take 2 days, even now 24 hours. But they did it simultaneously where there was no risk, and within seconds, that money was available for both parties to use again. And they were just saying simply just stocks trading before they go on the ledger and then it's actually credited to your account. That's going to open up like $2 trillion per 1 day just by doing the simple stocks. They didn't talk about bonds or anything else. So we're talking about tens of trillions of dollars unlocking every day because they can settle super fast, instantly almost. Myrex use U.S. treasuries. They tokenize U.S. treasuries, use those, wrap them in a smart contract, strip the value out and said, okay, you can use this as a repurchase agreement, meaning you can borrow those, but you're still gonna have to pay the interest on them. Unknown, I don't know what the interest rate they set, but a government can borrow that without actually having to buy the underlying real U.S. treasury. They're actually borrowing it from Myrex and their basket of capital versus owning the real U.S. treasury, so you can spin it back without having our oversight on it. Societe Generale seems to be a big one in here. Again, Citadel Securities, all stocks, and Societe Generale Bank, meaning your and my bank deposits in there have been pledged into this bucket of collateral of assets that can be used and swapped anywhere on the planet that needs financial help. And then we got Societe Generale, where they were doing their token conversion, making their own treasury out of this. So there's a few steps that seem to be involved in setting up the smart contract, becoming a treasury for this capital, bucketing it in a collateral pool, and then allowing others to tap into that collateral pool under the umbrella of the U.S. Collateral pool. So it seems like there's levels within it, but it all comes up and bubbles to the surface. And then we got JP Morgan and the CME on their margin. So a lot of times big banks will get margin called because they took a wrong position. Like gold, for example, they'll have 50 billion in gold options out there. Oops, and went the wrong direction. So they can pull from a specific quote unquote margin balance bucket of asset value to push against there so they don't get margin called. They'll wait 100 years before it comes back up or comes down or up to the price that they need it to clear again. So they will never have to pull another dime out of their own pocket to cover their bad bets. They'll just pull it from somewhere else and they'll wait as long as it takes. And this is going to cost them, I don't know what the value amounts are in this thing here, but the CME, this is where all the metals and the grains and all this stuff comes from. And then we got Citadel Securities, equity tokens again. Then we got Alpaca. Equity tokens means stocks. They've converted traditional stocks, wrapped them in a smart contract that's sitting over here. The stocks still exist, but they pulled the equity out of the actual value of the money, and that's in a bucket that's usable that can swing around. That was the whole thing about, like, your house is locked up. You can't really use your house to buy stuff. It's really, you can't move it to another country. You can't use it to really day-to-day transactions. Well, they've made this possible now. Your house is stripped out, the equity, the value increases now, usable money for somebody else. Not me or you, by the way, not me or you, for the banks and these institutions. Then we got BNP Paribas, and then we got Vanguard. Both did the same thing with equities and security lending yesterday. Like, this is big. super big, like gigantico big, and nobody's even looking at it. And then look for this. This is the next thing in the news you're going to start seeing again and again and again. They're going to have to. Every country on the planet in unison, as of yesterday and today, has suddenly passed all these crypto laws. They have to, because to be in this system, you have to be in the tokenized blockchain system. Bolivia, as of yesterday, ongoing integration with Tether into national payment system. See, every nation on earth has to suddenly tokenize to get into this new system that DTCC has launched by October of 2026. So every nation on the planet needs to instantly pass laws and move into the new system if they haven't already been. But this is what we're going to start to see across everywhere on the planet. This is it. DTCC, they tokenized yesterday the S&P 500, Microsoft, QQQ shares, which is an ETF, and treasuries for all Wall Street firms. They moved trillions of dollars into wrapped smart contracts onto this new system yesterday, and it made no news.
Wow.
No news. That's the craziest part. We started a new financial system yesterday, and there's no news about it. Unless you follow, and like I do, I'm really interested in this stuff because I want to see the future. I want to know how to protect myself.